Welcome to the 36th edition of Stump the Pastor. Our question today comes from Marcia in Birmingham, and she asks, what do we do with the horror stories in the Bible? Are they examples of who God is? If you have read through the Bible very deeply, you will eventually come across some stories that can make a shiver go up your spine or make you wonder, what in the world is this story really about? These are the stories Marcia is talking about, and there are actually a bunch of them. There's the story, for example, of Lot's daughter having sex with her father in Genesis 19. In Leviticus 10, two priests, Nadab and Abihu, offer sacrifices the wrong way, and as a result they are killed by fire. And Moses tells the people God did it. Jephthah made a pledge to God that if God gives him the victory in his battle, he will offer a sacrifice of the first thing that walks out of his front door when he returns home. Kind of a strange, specific thing. The first thing that comes out of his house is his daughter, and he kills her as a sacrifice to God. And it's not just the Older Testament. In the Newer Testament, in Acts 12, we have the story of Herod, who is struck down by an angel of God for not praising God. His body is said to have been eaten by worms. But the story continues. It says, "But the word of God continued to increase and spread." Sounds like God approved it. And there are many, many more. The rape of Tamar in 2 Samuel 13, bashing baby heads in Psalm 137, the mass killings of enemies that were conquered in many places. These stories and more are included in biblical texts, and too often in the history of the church, these and other biblical stories have been used to justify horrendous acts done in the name of God, including to justify violence against women, violence against strangers, and violence against the earth. The first thing we need to know is that this way of interpreting biblical text has a long history in parts of Christianity which use the Bible as a rule book rather than a narrative. When Christians, for example, say the Older Testament is all about law and the Newer Testament is all about grace, we perpetuate a false understanding of Judaism, which reads these stories very differently and much more frankly than fundamentalist Christianity. And we turn these stories then into models to perpetuate violence rather than examples from which we can learn better how to follow. And I really want to speak to preachers here in particular. You see, when we use these kinds of stories in worship or teaching, and we revert to the old trope that this is the way God works, then we advocate our authority as interpreters of the Word. Pretending that these stories don't need careful exegesis also means we miss opportunities to speak to the horror that members of our own congregation are still experiencing. See, every horror story in the Bible is still being perpetuated in our current settings. Rape, violence, racism, homophobia, sexism, and all other horror stories still stain our communities of faith, the places we live, and the people we love. These horrors continue to happen. These are the situations that scream for a word from God, a moment of grace. This is where ministry can be most life-changing. So back to Marcia's question. No, these stories are not examples of who God is. They are examples of how humans behave. How we respond to these realities reveals how God lives in us. See you next time on Stump the Pastor. Well, maybe you've got a horror story from the Bible you'd like to know about, or maybe there's other stories that have just twerked your interest. Send them to me. My email address is on the bottom of your screen. See you next time with Stump the Pastor.